Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. From fresh produce to tender cuts of meat, Safeway proudly supports Colorado farms and local small businesses. You support local when you shop at Safeway or in the Safeway app.
It's Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and this weekend I'm planning to celebrate it by heading over to the AAPI Culture Fest in Denver. It's billed as a day of music, food, and community. If you're there and we get to cross paths, don't be shy. Come over, say hi. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. Coming up, a Colorado lawsuit moves forward to hold Exxon Mobil and Suncor responsible for climate change. Then, House Republicans propose changes to SNAP benefits.
Work requirements are one idea and a major point of contention.
What the changes could mean for Coloradans. Plus, new valuations for office towers in Denver are low. If those buildings close, what's the future of the area?
I think there really could be a transformation.
And up to 75% of all bugs are gone. But you could help save at least one species.
Should the monarch butterfly go extinct tomorrow, there's not just an ecological impact.
It's Tuesday, May 13th. Here's the news in Colorado today. A marquee lawsuit in Colorado seeks to hold Suncor Energy and Exxon Mobil responsible for climate-driven disasters. The city of Boulder and Boulder County brought the suit 7 years ago. Yesterday, the state Supreme Court said it could go forward. CPR Sam Brash has more on what this means and how we got here.
The Colorado Supreme Court decided that this case belongs in state court where it was originally filed. Monday's decision is a big step towards an actual trial, which could come next year at the earliest, but probably won't appear before a Boulder County jury for at least another 2 years.
So then, Sam, what would it mean to hold these companies accountable for things like floods and wildfires?
So by holding these companies accountable, the local governments are really talking about trying to share the costs of major climate-driven disasters. One big example is the Marshall Fire from 2021. It caused more than $2 billion of damage in Boulder County, and scientists later linked that disaster to climate change. The Boulder lawsuit claims taxpayers shouldn't bear the full cost of those sorts of disasters, and that companies should share the burden because they knowingly contributed to climate change. And in Boulder's view, they also misled customers about the risks of burning fossil fuels. Hawaii has a similar lawsuit moving forward, and other states have filed them as well, but they're not as far along.
All right, so then what comes next?
So this decision should allow a state court to move forward to the discovery stage. That's when the court can collect documents and call witnesses to clarify how Exxon and Suncor shape the public's perception of climate change. That would be interesting all by itself. As people might know, there's been journalistic and academic investigations that Exxon accurately predicted the impact of fossil fuels in the 1970s, but continued to sow doubt about the climate crisis for years afterwards. This case could help fill in the details and maybe reveal new ones. But of course, the companies don't want this lawsuit to proceed, and they're going to keep fighting it procedurally to see if they can put it to a stop.
CPR Sam Brash, thank you. Congress is talking this week about cuts for SNAP, the benefits formerly known as food stamps. CPR's Caitlin Kim has been reporting on what this means for Colorado families. Hey, Caitlin.
Hi, Arlo.
So as families continue to struggle with inflation and food costs, why is SNAP on the budget-cutting menu in Congress?
So Republicans are looking to cut a lot of spending out of the federal budget to try and make permanent the Trump tax cuts and a host of other tax promises, while also increasing defense spending and border security. SNAP is part of the equation because it's an expensive program. In fiscal year 2023, it cost the federal government about $115 billion.
So tonight, House Committee will debate on the specifics. What's on the table?
So work requirements are one idea and a major point of contention. Now, SNAP already has work requirements, but House Republicans are looking to increase those work requirements, including able-bodied adults who have kids 7 and older for the first time, needing to meet work requirements. That could save about $40 billion, according to a projection from the Congressional Budget Office. Now, this is something Republican Representative Lauren Boebert supports. She says her mother used food stamps when Boebert was a kid, and it made her mom reliant on the government.
I worked with a 3-month-old. I think work requirements should be there.
Opponents, on the other hand, say expanding work requirements will be difficult for some parents due to the cost of childcare or because they live in a childcare desert. As one person asked me, are we supposed to leave a 7-year-old home alone?
Yeah. So then help me understand how this would affect Coloradans.
So as of late March, there are more than 330,000 households in Colorado that use SNAP benefits. That's according to the Colorado Department of Human Services. I met Megan Lovelace of Eagle County outside the U.S. Capitol recently. She was there to talk to lawmakers about the potential changes and what it would mean for families. She says her family used SNAP in the past, and she had a daughter with a disability, and she talked about getting calls from the school to come and pick up her daughter. And when she'd tell her bosses that, she'd lose her job. Basically, it was difficult for her to hold down full-time work while also juggling her daughter.
We are using it as it was meant to be used to nourish ourselves and our families so that we can stay healthy, contribute to our communities, and yes, go to work in ways that work for us, not ways that somebody in Washington, D.C. decides they work for us.
Now, Lovelace said that she was on SNAP when there were work requirements, and, this was part of the issue.
Are there other ways Republicans are considering changing SNAP?
Yes, the most controversial proposal was actually an idea to shift some of the costs to the states.
How would that work, and why is it so fraught?
So right now, states do already pick up about half of the administrative costs of SNAP. But some Republicans in Congress want states to take on a bigger share of the food costs. I think we're expecting something around the 10% figure, maybe as high as 25%. But some Republicans have already said that's too high. Now, states like Colorado also have to balance their budgets. Colorado's staring down some tough budget years ahead, and it's hard to imagine where Colorado will find the money to take on more SNAP expenses. Democratic Representative Brittany Pedersen says the cost-sharing proposal is effectively a cut, and it simply gives Republicans in D.C. the chance to shift the blame to the states.
Hey, we didn't cut it, it's that your state did. And because they're setting the requirement so high on the state funding piece here, that places like Colorado will not be able to fulfill that obligation.
Now, Boebert didn't weigh in on the cost-sharing idea, and Republican Representatives Jeff Hurd and Jeff Crank said they want to see more details.
SNAP is part of the Farm Bill, which Colorado farmers rely on to keep their businesses viable. Do these negotiations around SNAP affect the larger Farm Bill, and what might that mean?
Yeah, so Congress has struggled to reauthorize the Farm Bill for a couple of years now. And you're right, Arlo, cutting SNAP could affect the larger negotiations around the Farm Bill. Colorado farmers and ranchers have been consistent in saying that they need a new 5-year Farm Bill. And that bill has always been passed with bipartisan support in the past because it included both food aid and farm programs. You take the food aid out and institute partisan cuts to that program, that will likely make it much harder to get a bipartisan deal done. And that means Colorado farmers won't get the full updates and full support they've been clamoring for.
Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Thank you.
In this story, we talked about the idea of expanded work requirements. This week, House Republicans will also discuss expanding those requirements for people who get Medicaid. We'll bring you more on that story as the proposal develops. Some owners of offices and other commercial properties in downtown Denver are giving up. The pandemic cratered the real estate values. Bossy spoke to CPR's Sarah Mulholland, who's reporting on how downtown could get remade as a result.
Sarah, just how bad are things for commercial real estate?
Yeah, so just like homeowners got property valuations this month in the mail, so did commercial real estate owners. And the numbers for office buildings are not good. So office values are down between 10 and 25% since the last time they were assessed for tax purposes 2 years ago, and that's a pretty dramatic fall in that time frame. And some of that is due to old buildings that need a lot of updating, but this really all started when people started working remotely during the pandemic. And now over a third of downtown Denver's office space is vacant, according to one real estate services company in the city. And there's fallout from this. Empty offices means that downtown feels kind of hollowed out, and it's not as appealing to come and go to a restaurant or go out at night to a bar. And, commercial property owners pay property taxes too, and that goes towards funding things like schools.
So the stakes are certainly high for figuring out how to stop the bleed. Office buildings cost tens of millions of dollars to build. They come with huge mortgages. How are landlords reacting to the realities that you just talked about?
So some building owners were waiting to see what happened and whether the work from home trend would eventually kind of go by the wayside and everyone would come back to the office. But now they're starting to give up, and more landlords are defaulting on those loans because it's just not worth it to keep making payments. So I talked to Keith Effermeyer about how this is playing out. He's the Denver County assessor.
We've seen lenders take buildings back, buildings go to auction, things like that.
And likewise, a business attorney named Gerald Bregman at BG Law in Denver told me,
the big picture is that the owners are losing properties, and then that the property is going to be ultimately resold.
This sounds like a really big shift could be taking place. So what is the goal now? Is it to refill the office towers, bring in more businesses, and just reduce the vacancies? Or is there a chance that downtown could transform into something else?
So that's a really good question, and that's the question everybody is trying to answer right now. I think there really could be a transformation. The attorney, Bregman, told me if prices for empty office space fall far enough, it will eventually lure investors that can make better use of the space.
At some point, the market will respond to the economics, and that presents an opportunity.
The Downtown Development Authority is poised to pump $570 million into reviving downtown Denver, and that includes money to convert some of that office space into apartments. So that's one way downtown could get remade. But that's a lot easier said than done. And whatever happens, it's going to take years for this to play out.
Sarah Mulholland, thank you.
Thanks.
Does it feel like you're seeing fewer bugs now than you did when you were growing up? Well, it might not just be in your head, because scientists estimate that in the past 50 years, up to 75% of all bugs in the world have vanished. That is crazy. One of the insects whose population is shrinking is the monarch butterfly. And with Colorado reaching peak monarch migration season...
So welcome to Wings of the Tropics.
I walked into Denver's Butterfly Pavilion to talk about what we could do to protect them. I'm forgetting that I'm indoors right now.
It does look like you have transported yourself to the middle of the forest of Panama.
That is Shiran Herkovich. She studies butterflies, including those that live full-time at the pavilion.
Some of our butterflies are still feeling a little sleepy, as you can see them.
So what is it about the monarch butterfly that brings so much joy to people?
That is because in addition to being just a beautiful animal to look at, it completes one of the most incredible migrations in the animal kingdom. So this butterfly every year travels thousands of miles to find refuge in the forests of central Mexico, where they gather by the millions in just something that I can almost only describe as miraculous and magical. It's so special.
Can you tell me a little bit about how the monarch population is doing right now?
Like many other insects, it's just a difficult time to be wildlife. The migratory monarch has lost about 80% of its numbers. And when we think about why this is happening, the monarch butterfly has a long journey to complete. It needs healthy habitat not just in one corner, but along its migratory pathway. I always like to describe it as, imagine if you are going on a long road trip. You need to stop at the first gas station you see, you need to get some gas, you need to get your Takis, and the gas station says, sorry, we're closed. You say, okay, no problem, I'll go to the next gas station. So you keep on driving, you stop at the next gas station, this one is also closed. And if you continue to hit closed gas stations, eventually you'll run out of fuel, you won't be able to complete your journey. This is one of the pieces that is really affecting the migratory monarch. The stations for fuel that I used to stop may no longer be there.
What about other insects? Insect populations have been declining for decades and decades. I think someone has called it a bugpocalypse.
While definitely all insects need our helping hand right now, we talk about this bugpocalypse, and it's because almost everybody, I work in bug science, and almost everybody has a story of, when I was a kid, I used to see hundreds of insert any insect here, and I don't remember the last time I saw one, and that is because these declines have gone undocumented, but we know they have happened, and the monarch butterfly is an exception. We have tracked monarch butterfly numbers for decades, so we know about the steep declines that they have experienced, and we know that it's only a reflection of how other insects are doing.
For our listeners, if they want to keep the monarch butterflies protected, what can they do?
I love this question because when we work with monarch butterflies, they're here, they're visiting our backyards. We can see them right here in Colorado. One of the best things to do is become a gas station for them. Plant some native plants, plant some milkweed for their caterpillars to eat.
But no matter how much we do here, the monarch's fate depends largely on what happens beyond our borders, on the area that they go for winter. Herkovich points to one tree in the mountains of central Mexico, the Oyamel fir. For reasons that we don't fully understand, it's the only tree that monarchs will cling to, huddled together by the millions just to survive the cold weather. And that tree, well, it's disappearing.
So when the monarchs gather by the millions, they only do so in the Oyamel firs, which is a kind of very special, very fragrant, very beautiful fir. Most of the ancestral range of the Oyamel is no longer there. So we worked to restore that forest. So we're going to be planting 100,000 new Oyamels into the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve.
Efforts like the pavilions to help Oyamel thrive all the way over there in the mountains of central Mexico, that's what makes sure that monarchs will keep finding their way north in the spring, and for us to enjoy them here in our gardens. Thank you for listening to today's episode and for letting me bug out about butterflies. If you want to help us morph this show and give it wings, the best thing you can do is pollinate it across your friend group. I'm Arlo Perez Esquivel. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Shop online and get $30 off your first online order when you use code SAVE30 at checkout. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started at Safeway.com or the Safeway app.